Listening Comprehension, Sample 2. In this section of the test, you will have an opportunity to demonstrate your ability to understand conversations and talks in English. There are 3 parts in this section with special directions for each part. Answer all the questions on the basis of what is stated or implied by the speakers in the recording. There will be time for you to read the instructions, and you will have a chance to check your work. The recording will be played once only. At the end of the test, you will be given 7 minutes to transfer your answers to an answer sheet. Now, turn to Part 1. Part 1. Directions. In this part, you will hear 8 short announcements or instructions. There is 1 question for each announcement or instruction. For each question, choose the right answer, A, B, C, or D. Then on the answer sheet, find the number of the question and fill in the space that corresponds to the letter of the answer that you have chosen. Now, let's listen to the example. On the recording, you might hear,
"Hello, this is the travel agency returning your call. You left a message about the holiday you've booked, asking which meals are included in the cost during your stay at Sunny Hotel. Lunch and dinner are free, but if you wish to have breakfast in the hotel, you will need to pay an extra amount of money, depending on what you order. Let me know if I can help you with any other information. Goodbye."
On the test book, you will read, which meal is not included in the price of the holiday? A, breakfast. B, lunch. C, dinner. D, all. The correct answer is A, breakfast. We are ready to start. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 8. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 8. Question 1.
Hello, you've reached Hanoi International Language School. If you want to know more information about our English courses, press 1. German courses, press 2. Japanese courses, press 3. Please hold if you want to talk to one of our receptionists.
Question 2.
Attention please. The departure gate for flight VN178 to Bangkok has been changed from 30A to 30B. Also, there will be a departure delay due to the bad weather. We should be boarding at about 3:45. Thank you for your patience.
Question 3.
And now there is a change to our timetable next week. The art workshop on Monday is cancelled since Dr. Jim is ill. Instead, there will be a talk about the history of art in Lecture Hall 4 at the same time, and you are all expected to attend.
Question 4.
It is quite easy to find my apartment. Let's see. After watching the movie, you just go straight on from the cinema. When you see the traffic lights, turn left. Go along Cleverland Street until you see a clothes shop named Anna Boutique on the right. My apartment is on the 3rd floor of the C5 building, just across from the shop.
Question 5.
Hello, everybody. I am Jane. Welcome to our sports center. I will show you around the center and explain what we offer here. And then you can ask me any questions. Well, as you can see, this is quite a small center. but we offer a lot of different activities at different times of the day. We promise to bring you all the best equipment and trainers.
Question 6.
Good morning and welcome to Scotland. I hope you had a good journey and are not too tired this morning. My name is Jack and I'm here to help you. I want to tell you a few things which you might find useful. First, the banks here are open from 9 a.m. until 4 p.m. every day, except Sunday. Oops, I'm sorry. In this winter season, the bank staff start their work 30 minutes later than usual. That's 9:30 in the morning. The second thing you need to remember is the traffic.
Question 7.
Hi, everybody. Next Friday is the due date for you all to hand in your term paper. Some students in our class asked me if they could change their chosen topic. The answer is that you can write your paper on any topic you like, as long as you talk it over with me first.
Question 8.
And now for the weather. Today it will remain cool in the early morning with a light wind, and as we go through the morning the temperature will slowly rise, and by noon it will reach 30 degrees. Tomorrow we can expect some rain, but by the end of the week it's likely to be sunny weather again.
That is the end of Part 1. Part 2. Directions. In this part, you will hear 3 conversations. The conversations will not be repeated. There are 4 questions for each conversation. For each question, choose the right answer, A, B, C, or D. Then on the answer sheet, find the number of the question and fill in the space that corresponds to the letter of the answer you have chosen. Questions 9 to 12. Listen to the discussion between 2 exchange students, Martha and Peter. First, you have some time to look at questions 9 to 12. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 9 to 12.
I'm sure that's effective. So, we've just talked about learning English. Do you learn any other languages in the same way?
Actually, I thought about that question before, and I started studying Japanese a few years ago, but my Japanese learning is very different from my English learning.
How is it different?
Well, the little bit of Japanese that I've learned through listening mostly, and having to speak, or, helping myself in daily situations. I haven't been able to master enough kanji and Japanese symbols to be able to read it well, or to write it well at all. How about you?
I learned Spanish in a similar way to how I learned English. That is, I did study, but I didn't think of it as studying. It was fun for me, and then, once I reached a certain level, then I went to Spain to practice. But with Japanese, I haven't reached that level yet. Doesn't work anymore, so yeah, I've been trying to learn Japanese for a few years, but I think my brain has just become lazy.
It's interesting. Maybe our brains tackle every language in a different way. I don't know.
Maybe so.
Do you think age matters for language learning?
I would like to say no, but I think there are different factors. So surely, when you're young, you learn faster. And I think especially because there's nothing else that's occupying your mind. You're just studying. Maybe you go to high school or even university, so it's easy to take on another subject.
So age might have something to do with it? But I have this old friend who retired and then started studying French successfully. So I think it has a lot to do with your motivation, maybe. Your interest, maybe?
That's right. I was just going to say maybe more so than age.
Yeah, maybe when you're young you might be more eager to learn, but if you have the same kind of motivation when you're older, then why not?
Questions 13 to 16. Listen to the conversation between Emma, the tourist, and Felipe, a local person from Ecuador. First, you have some time to look at questions 13 to 16. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 13 to 16.
Felipe, you have been to the Galapagos Islands?
No.
But you lived in Ecuador, right?
Yes, well, you know the problem is that travelling to the Galapagos is really expensive for us.
What do you mean for us? Is it expensive for Ecuadorians?
Yeah, for nationals. For people who live in Ecuador, it's quite expensive because, you know, since the Galapagos attracts so many tourists every day, hotels and food and travel are so dear. So you know we cannot travel there because we can't afford it. But tourists, international tourists, can afford it to go.
That's weird. I had the idea that Galapagos is part of Ecuador, so I thought a lot of Ecuadorians would go there. So who goes to the Galapagos Islands?
Well, actually there's, 1 out of 10 Ecuadorians maybe might have travelled to the Galapagos.
But why do you think it's so expensive to travel there?
Well, because, as I just mentioned, thousands of tourists go there, and the islands can't support so many tourists every day. Let's suppose that if prices were really low, then more and more people would go there, and there might be environmental problems or just pollution, and those kinds of issues. So people in the Galapagos, their strategy has been to raise prices so that fewer visitors can go there and the environment isn't jeopardized.
That is true. I guess that makes sense, but being from Ecuador and not being able to see your own country, it doesn't make so much sense. I wonder how that can be solved.
Well, I don't really know, but maybe we have other options. We can travel to the Amazon region, which is maybe the same, as beautiful as the Galapagos, but you can travel to the highlands. Ecuador is a quite beautiful country. It's not only about the Galapagos, it's also about the different regions, the people, the food and the culture. Maybe the government should do something because people in Ecuador want to travel to the Galapagos, but it's really sad that we can't.
It is quite sad. Actually, I believe Ecuadorians should have more rights than the tourists to go to the Galapagos.
Yep, we should have more rights, but sadly we don't. So yeah, something should be done maybe.
Hopefully something will change.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Questions 17 to 20. Listen to the conversation between Todd and Katya. First, you have some time to look at questions 17 to 20. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 17 to 20.
So, Katya, you were talking about how you had an internship and how you actually made the transition from university to the working world and an internship, and now you've actually gone back to the university world. What struck you as the biggest difference having to go to the real world, the working world, from the university?
Well, the biggest difference, and something that I felt right away, was the responsibility that you have when you're working for somebody else. When you're a student, you're only responsible for yourself, making the deadlines and doing the work, and nobody else is dependent on you. When you're working, there are people depending on you, so the responsibility part was the biggest difference.
Was there anything you thought you maybe lacked that you wish you had prepared yourself more for at university? For example, computer skills or writing skills or anything like that?
I think presenting skills. Presenting skills and also technical words that I needed, like, I wasn't prepared for that.
Can you give an example of some technical words?
Well, I learned technical words in English, for example, like jurisdiction. But I didn't know how to say it in Spanish, even though that's my native language.
Yes, so I guess another big change is at uni, you might have mistakes when you write, but you maybe don't worry about that so much. In the professional world, it has to be perfect, right?
You really don't want to make mistakes because that can lead to less confidence in you. But having mistakes is not a big problem. It just reflects how much you can or cannot do.
So for students that are just finishing school or will finish school soon, they often have a lot of anxiety and worry about how they will make it in the real world and will they survive in the real world. What advice or tips would you give them?
I don't think they should worry that much and enjoy the experience of the transition. Nothing bad will happen regardless, so there's really no reason. It doesn't help to worry. So the only suggestion I would give is just to try your best and to try to find the things that you really want to do.
That is the end of Part 2. Part 3. Directions. In this part, you will hear 3 talks or lectures. The talks or lectures will not be repeated. There are 5 questions for each talk or lecture. For each question, choose the right answer, A, B, C, or D. Then, on the answer sheet, find the number of the question and fill in the space that corresponds to the letter of the answer you have chosen. Questions 21 to 25. Listen to a presentation about summer job searching. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 25. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 25.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Brian Alden. Today we're going to talk about how to get a summer job if you're currently employed. The first thing you should do for your summer job search if you're currently employed is to decide what type of job you are going to get. Is it something where you are working at weekends or at nights? Are you going to look for just a part-time job or full-time? How many hours are you looking for? So you really have to assess whether to commit to a second job during the summer and then look at the different types of fields to work in. Is it something that you want that is totally different from your full-time job? Or is it something that's kind of associated with your full-time job? Or is it something where you take one of your hobbies and turn that into a part-time job? For example, let's say photography is your hobby. You might want to go try and get a job as a part-time photographer at a local newspaper perhaps. The best way to find a summer job while employed is to try and look in your area. Look at the different types of companies in your area and look online to find out who is hiring and who is not. Secondly, a rule of thumb is to make sure that you're not looking for your second job while you're at your first job. Employers typically don't like that if you're looking for a new job while you're on their time. So don't answer phone calls about a new job, don't send your resume on company email, don't schedule interviews on company time, and do all of this on your own time. A full-time job is the most important job for you. Don't jeopardize it by doing something stupid just to get a second part-time job. Now, let's look at the great ways to make yourself stand out to employers when you're going on your interviews. 1. Since you're already in the workforce, you can certainly highlight all of your experience and stress all the positives of your background. All the same rules apply about showing up, for the interview early and looking great. But here you have an advantage because you've been in the workforce, so that you can stress the fact that you're always on time, you've a proven track record of what you've done with your company and how hard a worker you are. The bottom line is to get your current company's references for your second position because they know you're looking for a second job. You can call your current company and talk to somebody about a reference for you and how you work. So you've got a great advantage if looking for a second job, while you already currently have a job in the marketplace. So we've just given you some great tips and tricks on finding a summer job. Good luck!
Questions 26 to 30. Listen to a talk about recycling carbon. First, you have some time to look at questions 26 to 30. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 26 to 30.
Carbon forms the basis of all life on Earth. It's brought into the solid phase by plants through the process of photosynthesis. The availability of light and water, carbon dioxide and nutrients all affect how productive an ecosystem can be. These are called environmental factors. But photosynthesis is only part of the cycle of carbon. We also need to look at how carbon is returned to the atmosphere so the balance is maintained. The most significant route for this is through decomposition. Organic matter falls to the ground when it dies, and then biological, physical, and chemical processes take over, incorporating that organic matter into the soil. This loss of leaves, twigs, and sometimes whole trees is going on almost constantly in tropical forests. But in the seasonal broadleaf forests of the temperate latitudes, it's concentrated in the autumn leaf fall. Falling leaves become litter on the forest floor, and its nutrients are usually conserved through recycling. Ultimately, the organic matter becomes so decomposed that it is mineralized into carbon dioxide. And when that carbon dioxide leaves the soil, we call that soil respiration. So you could consider the soil to be a single entity within the carbon cycle. The carbon that started out in the atmosphere as carbon dioxide returns to the atmosphere from the soil, and this completes the cycle. But it's not an instant process. The carbon can be stored in litter for quite some time and even longer in the soil itself. The amount of carbon in an ecosystem is not only in the living biomass, but in the litter and the soil organic matter too. And the amount is a balance between the rate of photosynthesis delivering carbon, and the rate of decomposition, liberating it again to the atmosphere. What determines this balance is the environmental factors such as temperature, availability of water, nutrient availability. If we take the example of a tropical rainforest, which is warm and moist, and nutrients are available, then litter is broken down very quickly, and you can get a very small store. All the carbon is in the biomass. But if you take another example, such as the Arctic tundra, which is cold and wet, decomposition occurs much more slowly, and a lot of carbon is stored within the soil.
Questions 31 to 35. Listen to a lecture about poor comprehenders. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 35. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 35.
Welcome back, everyone. In our last session, we talked about language and literacy. In this section, we will begin talking more about poor comprehenders. So let's look at the overview of this term. The term poor comprehender is used to describe an individual who's able to read fluently and accurately, so decoding aspects of reading are intact, but when being asked about what they've been reading, they find it very hard to reflect on that, and often you may get a don't know response, so their level of understanding is weak compared to their decoding skills. On the surface, these children appear to read very fluently and accurately, so they may be in quite a strong position in terms of their reading skill. However, in a classroom situation, I personally think that it's quite difficult to work one-on-one to explore their understanding of the text, as it often requires some questioning to talk through different aspects of the text to really know their understanding of what the story's about. In terms of prevalence, about a quarter of children in the primary school age group may show a poor comprehender profile, so it's becoming more and more recognized. In fact, if you think about the demands of a primary school curriculum, many aspects require quite high-level comprehension skills to be able to process information effectively, so a poor comprehender might find it difficult not only in literacy but also in subjects such as history, geography, any subjects where they have to focus on key information, summarizing, predicting, and deeper-level understanding. Reading comprehension is, in fact, an incredibly complex skill that involves lots of different processes, so the research literature has uncovered a number of different areas where poor comprehenders have difficulties. And so, by definition, they have difficulties when they're understanding text. But then if we look at their wider skills, they may also have difficulties in oral language tasks like vocabulary tasks, expression, narrative, inferencing, and beyond that, issues with other cognitive skills. So they may also have difficulties with things like memory skills and eliminating irrelevant information. It's also possible they have a ball and chain monitoring their own comprehension and actually knowing when their comprehension is broken down. So the ability to think and reflect on what they've learned and where they're at with a piece of text, they might find it very hard to do that.
That is the end of Part 3. Now, you will have 7 minutes to transfer your answers to an answer sheet. That is the end of the listening test.